Hi there, it's Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder here with this week's episode of the Market Monday on a Tuesday, typical Rogue Deck Builder fashion. Anyway, I've got a juicy topic for today that I'm calling the market whiplash that I'm expecting to occur in maybe late August, early September. Might be even pushing towards the winter with this whiplash. So there's a couple of factors in my personal life that led me to believe this is going to happen. And this isn't just Magic the Gathering. I think the entire United States economy is due for a whiplash with products. So something I'm doing personally is I'm trying to buy a truck right now. So my Honda Civic just doesn't get the job done. I've beat it up going on adventures, and I've actually got a hole in my head gasket that's going to get worse and worse. So I got some time with my Honda Civic before I really have to buy a new car. So I've been in the market looking for a deal on looking for something like a Nissan Frontier or a Toyota Tacoma, something that mid-sized truck I think will work great for my lifestyle. And the prices of cars and trucks are just they're ludicrous at this point. That everything is going for 30-40% more of like the Kelley Blue Book market value. And the guy that I'm working with, a friend that of mine, actually owns a dealership and has been bidding on these particular trucks and other things just for his own business, but also for me. And we've been outbid every time by way more than we're willing to pay for these particular things. And so I talked to some other dealerships around the state, and it seems to be in this market that the inventory is just not getting to the United States dealerships or to these other, secondary markets like these used cars lots and stuff like that. Because a lot of the times how it works is manufacturers, their biggest buyers are the like budget rent-a-cars and those type of things, and they haven't been getting new inventory in because no one's been renting cars, and they have like this threshold of when cars are sold. Once they hit like 40,000 miles or 50,000 miles, that's when they sell them to, like, they put them on auction just for insurance reasons and whatnot. And there's just been this choke point that's been happening in the car market. The same can be said about, I have a friend that's a jeweler, and he has had record sales because of the same thing, that there are these big companies that haven't been getting their inventory. So we're talking about like all the malls that are currently closed down, and there are other jewelers that have been closed down. And so he, being one of the only jewelers that's been open, has just been doing record sales. And it's not because the market is hot. At first, I was thinking it was the kind of the Trump money that was really fueling the MTG market or these other markets, like why I couldn't get a decent car, or why my friend was getting record profits in his jeweler industry. And now when I'm actually thinking of talking specifically with distributors today, I think what we're really seeing is the lack of supply, not really the lack of demand. So this is a huge, huge warning sign that I'm going to put out there for everyone for the Magic the Gathering market. I think that we are going to head into a whiplash of once these, someone also brought to my attention that the market, the TCG player, why can't I think of it, the MLK, is that what it's called? Why can't I think of the TCG Europe type company, has been shut down this entire time. They haven't been selling, and that is a large, even in the U.S. market, you'll say, well, that's just Europe. Well, Europe and U.S. have this kind of a counterbalance to each other, that when one of the markets becomes more expensive, then the other one just this ships overseas to fill that market, and then the roads come back to normal of where prices settle. So that with that being shut down, you've seen the U.S. market just go crazy because that supply that used to get injected into the system has not been there. And there have also been many local game stores that haven't been operating for the last couple of months, which are TCG players that have put their basically TCG player status on vacation. So there's just been less supply on TCG Player as a whole. And even big name places like Card Kingdom have had some months where they haven't been operating. And all of this is led me to believe that is what is going on more than just the $1,200 stimulus package that everyone got going towards Magic cards. I think that did help in an already problematic time with supply having these shortages. And now, speaking of distributors, I think we're expected to see the same thing with sealed products. So I have Jumpstart that's pulled up here for a reason. So if you haven't heard by now, Jumpstart is missing about 50% of their products. So I've heard some different theories of why that is. One of the theories is that they use the Japanese printers for Jumpstart and for 50% of the allocation for Jumpstart, and that's got caught up in customs. Other one is just that there have been problems with the printers getting the right stuff to print, like paper and all that sort of stuff. So they've had a tough time at the Texas printers actually being able to print enough of it. And same thing with just the warehouse logistics, that things have just gotten choke point up at different warehouses, because by the time it gets to distributors, it's had to go into the various different warehouses that Wizards uses through other secondary or other companies besides themselves to actually ship their product and store their product. And there's just choke points after choke points with the Jumpstart allocation. So I think what's going to end up happening is that Jumpstart prices are going to go through the roof because people are not getting their expected allocation. My allocation was cut very, very severe. In fact, one of the distributors can only give me 2 Jumpstart booster boxes, not cases, 2 boxes. And one of my main distributors, which I put in for hundreds, is only going to give me about 30. So we're having some massive problems with Jumpstart. I mean, that's barely enough to even run the events, let alone like sell boxes. And it's going to lead to prices of some of these cards that are already inflated due to the fact that people started selling these just from the buy a box packs that people got with buying Core 2021. So I think this is a bit misleading with where Jumpstart will settle. So right now we are seeing this type of market due to the lack of supply, and it's not going to stay this way when that. I think what's going to happen is it's going to lead to a twofold problem with Jumpstart. All these local game stores are just going to sell out, and they're going to demand this set gets reprinted. And Wizards of the Coast are going to see these, strong sales, and this product is out of stock everywhere, and they'll probably will put in for another reprint. Then that second wave is going to come on us in August or late July, early August. And then people that have already purchased all these cards will no longer have a need for these particular cards, and then it's going to crash the market for Jumpstart. And then we're going to get that third wave on top of these waves that are really going to be the nail in the coffin. That is something that I can definitely see with Jumpstart. So I highly I want to say encourage, but discourage people from really investing in the set before they realize all the factors that are going in this. Now, across the board, this can be said for Magic the Gathering. We have a huge bull market right now for everything besides like Modern and Legacy, so things that require like tournaments and stuff to really lead to a buying spree on cards that go in the latest decks. We've seen a massive decrease in Modern as a whole, and Pioneer as a whole, and Leg as a whole. But we've seen other sets that don't require that organized play just go through the roof. If you take a look at kind of the Commander staples, they've gone up just like things like Cyclonic Rift. Here's a good example of a card, have just gone crazy over the past couple of months, and just increased a ton in value. And this is pretty much across the board. If you went over to EDH Rec, or if we come over here to, if we go over here to kind of the metagame on MG Goldfish, come over here to Commander and click on some of these cards that, some of these staple cards that go in some of these big name decks. And you can see that many of these cards also have just gone through the roof. So cards like the Dryad of Elysian Grove has actually stabilized and gone up. This is a very things like the Ram Excavator have had significant gains, even though it was a pre-release or a promo card, and those are 2 bad examples. But many of these other cards have started to really have a lot of price increase. There's the Farrowborough Elder, for example, that is still in a standard set, is also in a Brawl deck, that have just had very significant gains through this pandemic. So I'm thinking that these sort of trends are going to come to an end once everything comes back to normal. If we ever do get a normal, of course. Now we're talking about the additional, infections with COVID-19, and if you look at historical viruses, it takes about 2 to 3 years before they really go through the system. That these lockdowns really haven't worked. I mean, as soon as you reopen the economy, then you just get the secondary or the infections going again. And it's just a kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario with it. And so we don't know how long these sort of lockdowns are going to affect the markets and places closing down. But there will be that whiplash, and that's one thing that I think is going to impact the market is the whiplash, but not only that, but with double masters. So that brings me kind of to part 2 of this kind of doomsday scenario with a looming bear market with Magic the Gathering. So Ultimate Masters caused we can just pick anything here for the prices. So if we go to, let's see, format staples, I think it has a, where do I find it on Goldfish again here? That there used to be a way to look at the price lifts of total format prices. So yeah, there we go, total format prices. Let's see if this data goes back long enough. Not standard, we definitely don't want standard here. So we can see that Ultimate Masters, when it was released, it had a massive effect on the entire market. We see this huge stagnation period of Ultimate Masters of when it, and these little things are resets of what they consider staples. I wish they would have a better metric that we could use, like the total value of cards. If you look at the historical time of Ultimate Masters, though, it crashed everything, and that was a pretty robust, strong economy with Magic the Gathering. Was when Ultimate Masters came out. That was still around the War of the Spark time. So you can see Ultimate Masters, War of the Spark, and Dominaria. This was like the glory year of Magic. This one was a very strong, from April of 2018 to April of 2019, was a very strong period in Magic the Gathering. I would say it's the second strongest period. The other one that was a very strong time period of Magic the Gathering was Return to Ravnica. I'd even say Avacyn Restored, all the way to, it really lasted about Battle for Zendikar before we started to see a recession in the market for Magic the Gathering. And then through the sets, it was really Eldritch Moon, I'd say, was starting the downward spiral, and then we had that really stagnant Modern and stagnant Standard series, where it just Commander was also not the biggest format at the time, and it was just, this was a huge lull for Magic the Gathering from Kaladesh all the way to Rivals of Ixalan. It's kind of funny here that it also showcases that in the Modern staples. Again, there's a lot of resets, so this isn't the best metric to use, but this was the lull of Magic. And then we entered into a little bit of another lull here from Throne of Eldraine all the way to Ikoria, and we're still under a pretty bad market, I would say, overall, but I think that has more to do with the COVID-19 shutdown than anything. In fact, it's been surprising how strong Magic's been able to remain. But it's not just Magic; it's been Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and a lot of other things. It looks like hobbies have been something that people have just gone full throttle at because there's nothing better to do during this time period. So board game industry too, that's gone through the roof during this pandemic. So the whole thing going back to Ultimate Masters, though, is it crashed the market during a very good time in Magic the Gathering, because all of the purchases in that time period were really geared toward Ultimate Masters. It was just the dust set that everyone was going to buy into. The value was just through the roof. I made a lot of warning videos on this particular channel saying do not buy, do not pay over MSRP, do not even pay. I mean, you should be not paying those ludicrous price of $400 to $500 when the Ultimate Masters hype was through the roof, because there's no way, no how with the supply that these prices can hold. And lo and behold, if we actually look at Ultimate Masters, if I can find the stupid thing of where they've got it. So Ultimate Masters, this was a set that took a long time to recover. You can make the argument that now it's barely starting to recover, but the problem is that a lot of the cards that are contained in Ultimate Masters will most likely also be contained in Double Masters. So it had a huge value when it was first released, and it got crushed, and usually you can expect about 6 months for a set to begin to recover. At the 6-month mark, it was still going down. Over a year later, it was still flat, and then it actually had this huge decrease during that lull period I was talking about, from War of the Spark to about Theros. It hit its low at 915, hit another low right after Theros at 907 for the total format price, and now it's followed the same trajectory with a lot of the Commander cards and other things just skyrocketing during this shutdown. Cards that are going up, like the Mana Vaults and the Ulamogs, those things have had the Phyrexian Altars, those have had some really good recoveries, which has spelled pretty good recovery for Ultimate Masters. But I think that Double Masters is going to be Ultimate Masters times 2, pun intended, that it's going to have this effect and not only crash its own value, but then crash everything else that is around the same time period. If you remember this time period too, like all the other supplemental products were very, very tough to sell. Things like Rivals of Ixalan, things that were still in Standard had very, very poor sales because all of the purchases were going towards Ultimate Masters. So I think we have this double whammy that's on the horizon of both the whiplash effect of when distributors, or not distributors, but well, speaking of distributors, we just did have one of the major distributors finally open back up that's been shut down. So think of all the supply that usually goes through Alliance, one of the massive distributors that had been shut down all the way from late February all the way to middle of June, I believe, is when they opened back up. So there was that distribution that was completely shut down, which is stuff rotting in warehouses, and now is going to be released back into the public. And think of all the other, like, either large stores or small stores, or even things like kind of the size of Card Kingdom that have been shut down at this time period. They're going to open back up and just flood the market back in with all that supply that maybe they've been buying their allocations, just not selling it. So I think that putting these two factors together is going to result in singles prices and sealed prices dipping when double masters are released. So going back to Jumpstart, that's where I really am putting out this warning here for people that want to be investing in the second wave of Jumpstart. If you can get on the first wave of Jumpstart, steal of a deal. Awesome. Flip it immediately, crack it for the value. You're going to get the value back. Spoiler alert, I've played Jumpstart. I think it's a pretty terrible. It feels like playing Introdex versus Introdex, and maybe that's what they wanted. That's the product. It really feels like they took a lot of vanilla kind of ideas from Core 2021. When I mean vanilla, very basic, like Sacrifice, like Menace type, like these things, and made a theme around them. And the gameplay is pretty lackluster. Like, I wasn't very impressed with how Jumpstart played against each other. I think it takes away all the good points of Magic. Like, Magic's all about customizing. That's why I'll never get into like a game like Keyforge, because I don't like to just, open two things and mash them together and play them. I like to make that decision. Deck building is where I get the most fun out of Magic the Gathering, and take that experience away, then it's kind of a dead product. But beyond that, I just thought that Jumpstart was pretty lackluster with its themes. But anyway, maybe people will enjoy it, but I think that the main thing with Jumpstart is people are just going to flip them because the prices are just crazy with Jumpstart. You'll definitely get your value back with the EV, with the Allosaurus Shepherds being $70, and all these, the Trinket Thief now is up to $70 as well. And so if you can flip it, these prices also will remain pretty steady because there isn't a lot of supply coming in. But where I'm really warning is people investing at this particular cost when that second and third wave come and just completely crush it. And this wave will be coming the exact same time the double masters is going to be dropped on us. So it's going to have that factor of everyone else going to the new and shiny thing, forgetting about Jumpstart, and really not investing in it, which will lead to all the sellers wanting to free up some capital to get in the juicy double masters. They might have a runaway effect that we saw with ultimate masters, where prices actually increased. If you actually go back to my video where I was keeping a running daily total of the set EV, some people pulled the trigger early and called me a kind of an idiot for, look, prices have increased from your low, and I was just saying just wait, and they said nope, you gave bad advice. It's jumped, or Ultimate Masters is recovered, blah, 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 and then lo and behold, it did go back down. I think we're going to see the same thing with Double Masters. It's going to have that first little release where, people are, the sellers especially, trying to gauge where they should sell it at. Speaking of which, there are the Sports and Mores and a lot of the eBay sellers that are already unloading them in the 280s, which is very low comparatively of where it should be for MSRP. So Double Masters cost more than Ultimate Masters, but many of these big stores have already realized that they're probably not going to get the 350, 400 that they want, and it's better to be safe than sorry. They're not going to go the Ultimate Masters route. In fact, I could still buy Ultimate Masters. During a couple months ago, I believe I was finding them for it was like 300 without a box topper and about 320 to 340 with a box topper. And so that still, with a set as old as Ultimate Masters, was pretty pitiful for the initial price, the initial investment. I mean, you even compared to something like a box of an older set like Amonkhet around the same time period would have had a better overall increase than if you would have invested. And the thing is, you couldn't get in the price of like $76 Amonkhets like you could get in like $76 Amonkhets, having them go to $125. Comparatively, what you were paying for Ultimate Masters about $350 and above back during that time period. So anyway, really giving that warning out there for Jumpstart, for Double Masters. With the whiplash effect, it's going to happen, in my opinion. Just stay safe out there with your investments. We haven't seen the end of this. I think it has more to do with just the supply being really choke point rather than the demand really just being through the roof like some people might think. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll keep an eye on the market, and I'll get back to normal market Mondays in the future and start giving specs on the Rogue Market. Speaking of which, I will have a video out today on the Rogue Market channel. Yeah, it's been a month since I posted anything on the Rogue Market. I'm going to give my top picks for investments that I think are actually pretty pretty good right now. We have a really juicy one, as there is a card in the box set that is actually worth more or more than you'd actually pay for that box set. So I'll be showcasing that on my Rogue Market channel. Hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.